What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast. And here's this article I want to go over because I found it pretty interesting. And it says Social Security trust funds now projected to run out of money sooner than expected due to the Black Swan event, Treasury says. They say here the Social Security trust fund most Americans rely on for their retirement will run out of money in 12 years, 1 year sooner than expected, according to an annual government report. And who knows, they could if they keep printing money at the same level that they did or higher, this number right here can shrink. The circumstances, which were exacerbated by the Black Swan event, threaten to shrink retirement payments and increase health care costs for Americans in old age sooner than expected. The financial outlook for Social Security and Medicare, two of the nation's preeminent safety net programs, has deteriorated over the past year. And this is no surprise, folks. If you have a Social Security and you plan on, retiring and get some money from that, I mean, the situation is bad, and the amount that you'll receive is probably not going to be the same. This, folks, the amount of baby boomer population compared to how much you know people there are today currently working, it's a lot less. Back then people were having a lot more people, but nowadays people don't have as many kids as they did back then. So the population is shrinking, and it's harder and harder for this Social Security trust fund to be maintained, especially with the monetary and fiscal policy that's happening. Okay, it's a sad thing, but it's a reality that people have to think about, because once that's gone, you can say goodbye to your retirement. That's why it's important that you have other things set aside, because you can't rely on something like this. You have to make sure that you have prepared well. And what can happen, here to 12 years, who knows what can happen in this country at the time we're in. A lot of things are very volatile. And I'm going to show you something that will open your eyes to see that things are getting very, very interesting and very critical. Okay, this is just a small piece of it. Okay, this retirement thing is nothing in comparison to what's actually taking place. And here it's actually, before I show you this, I want to show you this. Okay, Agenda 21. You can go ahead and look it up. And here this person's opinion says it has become Agenda 2030, which both are very real. You can look it up and read about it. And most governments have definitely signed up for this. And they go over, if you look at Agenda 2030, you can see the different aspects and different things they're trying to target by the year 2030. And this is a global effort. And these Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 are global efforts. But in order to do that, how do you control people? It's through their money. If you control their money, you control a population. Okay, because it allows whether they're able to participate or not in the economy. And that's very important. And you realize we become more and more dependent on being able to participate on these economies and these stores. People nowadays don't really have their own land where they can grow their own stuff and be independent. No. And that's why what this man says is very interesting, because we're very dependent on the state. Absolutely. So take a listen.
Agenda 21 is kind of a code name for a master plan originated at the United Nations to change the political and economic system of the world to one of total collectivism. And in order to do that, people must not be allowed to have independence. They must be dependent on the state for everything. Otherwise, they won't be easily controlled by the state. That means they can't have private property, mostly. They cannot have land of their own. They have to live in preferably high-rise apartments that are provided to them by the state as a benefit, so to speak. Oh, good, we got a free apartment. But they want These people at the top want all humans to be dependent on the largesse of the state. That means that they don't want anybody living out in the boonies. Anybody that's got a couple of acres of land and his own water supply and can grow his own food and that kind of thing, or have some sheep or some chickens, these people are a threat to the collectivist society because they aren't going to go to the politicians and say, please feed me, please clothe me, please give me shelter. They tend to be independent. That's the secret behind Agenda 21. They want people out of the country. They want corporations out there growing all the food and that kind of thing, but they don't want anybody living out there because that way they cannot be controlled. In order to control mankind, we have to get them all into the big cities. We have to rack them up and stack them up, get them dependent on the state for their food, their shelter, their electrical power, their water, everything. That's the dirty secret behind Agenda 21.
And this is G. Edward Griffin. He wrote Jekyll Island, and that's a great book that talks about how the Federal Reserve was instituted and how, that basically set up the situation that we are in today. Very good read. But anyways, this is very true, and this is why I talk about make a financial plan, understand what you're doing. We're in a critical time in our nation's history, and make no mistake, it's already started in Nigeria. You might say, oh, don't kid around. That's in Nigeria. That's not going to come here in the United States of America. No way. Well, let me remind you that what's happening is a global effort. In terms of the Black Swan event, it's a global effort. And this, pestilence 19 that we have, everyone's coming together to work together to fight it. And all these mandates and these passports, it's global. So let me just show you something that is very likely to happen here in the States of America.
We have made adequate arrangements with security to prevent anybody who does not have a vaccination card from accessing any of these events. Also, you will not be allowed to access banking services in Edo State from the middle of September if you have not been vaccinated. If you want to undertake banking services, you will do so remotely from.
Okay, so banking services, if you don't provide that identification that you've been inoculated, you will not receive banking services. You'll have to do so. I think he said at the end you'll have to do it from home but you can't go in person. And folks, it's time to wake up and realize the situation. It's very critical. And here Michael Maloney he's on point. He said gold and silver are sound money. But right now that sound is falling on deaf ears. Soon the call will be so loud that even the deaf will hear it. Okay? So, with that being said, I'm providing this information because I want you guys to be ahead of the curve. I want you guys to understand and be informed and make good financial decisions. Because we're living in a very interesting time, and hard times are coming. And those that prepare ahead of time will not be caught off guard. If you hope this episode has brought you some value, like and subscribe, share this video, help others become aware, and help others learn so that they too can be ready. This is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.